Hello and welcome. This is Brett from the Food Truck Empire podcast. Today I'm going to be switching up the script a little bit, doing something a bit different for a series of podcasts that follow Anthony Salvegno over the next 6 to 12 months as he begins his first food truck business called Switch It Up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, the goal of this case study, as we're calling it, is to provide an example of the challenges and experiences that entrepreneurs face when embarking on this type of business in real time as it's actually happening. The plan that we've got set ahead for us is to get to know Salvegno over these next few months, all the way from when he starts building a business plan to seeking capital, and then fast forward to when he's actually opening the window of his first food truck, which is slated for 2014. Now, my vision for this series is to be less like a radio show and more like two guys just sitting around having a beer talking about starting their business. The other cool thing about this case study is that this is not theoretical business starting. This is an actual business that is beginning, and really anything can happen at this point. Salvegno could totally crash and burn, lose all his money, and end up living on the street somewhere. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Flip side to that, it could be a huge hit. He could make $1 million anywhere in between. But whatever happens, we're going to be here to chat about the experiences and document his process for building a business. And I hope that really helps everybody that's listening to this show. Now, in addition, I'm planning to break up some of these conversations by topics that you can bounce around, listen to the different topics that you're interested in the future, whatever point you're at within your own business. With that being said, let's get to know Anthony a little bit better and take a look at the approach he used to write his own business plan. Hopefully this outline that we create together is going to serve as a valuable resource. But before we start talking about how the process you've gone about to launch your own food truck, Switch It Up, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and your backgrounds, and I guess just why you decided to get started in the food truck industry in the first place? Because I know you've got a pretty diverse background that I'll let you explain to people.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. So the most interesting / complicated / crazy part of my background is that I'm actually a PhD physicist, and I spent the past 6 years getting my PhD. I graduated back in March, and it was all the type of research that I was doing was biophysics. It was related to how water can affect microorganisms and microscopic particles in general. And
you lost me at microscopic particles, but keep going.
Well, I'll get a little bit more into that like some other time. But the other aspect of my research was that I was focused on open research, meaning that everything that I did in the lab was published on my own website in real time as I did it, which was unprecedented in the scientific community. Typically, the way things work is you kind of work in your lab, and then you like get all your data and you analyze your data, and then you make like a nice little printout of what you've done for the past, year or 2 years, or however the case may be. And then you publish that in a journal, like top tier journal. And in science, the top tier places are like Science and Nature, and there's a couple other smaller outlier ones. And I just got involved in this whole movement basically because I was like sick of the way that science communication was being done. And I was like, it's not just for me. It's not just for like other scientists. Everybody on the planet should be aware of like what's going on all the time. And so I kind of just developed this philosophy of like sharing all my research in real time. And I graduated with the pretense that I was going to be doing that for the whole rest of my life. Like everything I did from this day forward would be open, no matter what it was. So like to me, there's no such thing as intellectual property. There's just like the things that I create, and you're going to enjoy the things that I create because no one can do it like I can. And I wouldn't be a very good, chef or scientist or anything else if I couldn't keep innovating. And so I really feel that there's no reason for me to keep secrets. I started in the food truck industry in a really strange way. So like growing up, my mom always made me peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch. And like my love of that random food carried through high school and college. And like I remember one day, like it was like my senior year of college or something like that. I came home and I was like, Mom, will you make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And she just laughed. She's like, here you are, you're like a 21-year-old man and you're still asking your mom to make you peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. She's like, you're going to get sick of this one day. And I'm like, no, I don't think I could ever get sick of PB&J. And, you know, she laughed and she's like, mark my words, you'll be sick of it. And then fast forward till about 2 years ago, I eventually did get sick of PB&Js. But it wasn't like in the way that normal people would. Like, I'm just sick of this. I don't want to eat this anymore. Get it out of my face. I was like, well, I have PB&J. I'm hungry. But I have all these other, like, fancy spices and mixtures. Let me try and, like, make something new. And so one of the first sandwiches I did was I took honey and lavender and mixed it together and put it on, you know, mixed it with peanut butter. And then I just did like a regular strawberry jam with it, and I was like, "Oh, this concoction's actually really good." The next day, I did. I made some bacon, mixed it with maple syrup, and added that to peanut butter, and used a different jam. And then I went to like a local grocery store and discovered that they don't make just raspberry jam or grape jelly or strawberry jam. They make like Marion blueberry jellies and green chili jellies, and I was like, "Holy cow! There's a whole world of like spreads that I've never seen before." So I just kind of started mixing my own concoctions with all these new spreads, and I started like loving the outcomes. On top of that, I was making my own bread at the time. I was dating this girl who was allergic to nuts. And so because of that, like we couldn't ever go to a bakery and buy a loaf of bread because there was probably nut contamination. So my mom had shipped me out a bread maker that she had never used, which she had owned for like 10 years. And I started making my own breads in the bread maker. And then I started making different kinds of breads and mixing them with the different spreads that I had and that I was also making. And I eventually started making all these things for my friends and family, and every time I gave a sandwich to somebody, they were like, "This is amazing. I would have never thought that you could do this with peanut butter and jelly." And fast forward to about a year ago, actually, wow, I can't believe it's been that long already. The University of New Mexico, which is where I graduated from, does this business plan competition, and a friend of mine suggested I enter this sandwich idea into the business plan competition as a food truck. And I had always jokingly thought of doing this as a food truck, but I had never really taken it seriously. And so I decided to like do a lot of the research involved in getting a food truck together, and I wrote a business plan and I entered the competition. Meanwhile, at the same time, I was also writing my dissertation. And the span between like the business plan competition and my PhD defense was 2 weeks. So I had like 2 weeks to write the business plan, and then another week to write my my dissertation, and then like I had to defend my dissertation, and then 2 weeks after that I had to present the business plan in this competition. To make a long story short, I graduated with my PhD, and then I won second place in the business plan competition. And there actually was a cash prize attached to that, which was $5,000. And I was like,
wow, not bad.
The University of New Mexico thinks that my idea is worth $5,000, it might be time to take this seriously. So after doing all the work, I already had like a leg up on getting the truck up and running. And so it's just been kind of like getting some extra cash together and fleshing out the ideas a little bit more and finding a truck builder, and here I am today.
Very, very cool. Now, you talked about a couple of different things at the beginning of your story that I'd really like to dive into a little bit deeper. One of them is the business plan, and then the other part, it sounds like, is kind of the beginning of your menu and your food concept. But I guess let's start out with the business plan first. What information at a high level did you put into that business plan, and what sort of research did you do to research the food truck market, I guess, in the Albuquerque area? Can you sort of walk me through that, your thinking behind it?
So, like, as far as the business plan went, it's kind of hard to go into like a business plan with the proper mindset, because doing all my research on just like what exactly a business plan is, I feel like I got pulled in two directions. There's like a whole group of like savvy entrepreneurs and business people who don't believe in the business plan at all.
Yeah,
like
tons.
Yeah. They're like, okay, you have this written document that you never ever use again. Mm-hmm. But then there's this whole other group of people who actually believe in the business plan. But then there's also the people who who don't believe in the business plan, but they all say, you should at least have one, because the person who doesn't have one is the person who sets themselves up for failure.
Yep.
So, like, for the competition itself, like, whether I believed in one or not was irrelevant, because I had to have one. And so, there was a format guide that they had. They were just like, you need to make it this way. It needs to be 20 pages long. You need to have financial information. You need to have these sections involved. There was like a marketing section. There was a section about your concept and how you're going to be innovative and how you're going to like support the community, or how you're going to basically like kind of the basics of what you want in a business. And then as far as research went into it, it was like I basically wanted to know everything there was to know about putting a food truck together. This way, like I had a feeling that I wouldn't be able to fit all that information into the document itself. But, if I ever get asked those questions in the competition, I'd be able to answer them and just be like, well, I don't know, because I couldn't get to that in the business plan.
Yeah.
As far as like the Albuquerque food truck research was actually kind of challenging, because when I started doing the research for the business plan, there was only like 5 food trucks in the city. And then, to put that into perspective, now there's like 20. And I mean, that's not like a huge growth, but for a city like Albuquerque, that's really massive. To like basically, 400% growth in a year. But when I started, but I should say that there's actually more than that. I think there's an estimate of like something like 200 food trucks or mobile food units, as the city defines it. But I'm talking like, when I define a food truck, I mean something like legit that you like. If you Google food truck, you see they have like the nice wrap, they have a super fancy menu, and they like advertise on Facebook and Twitter and all other forms of social media. And I'm kind of discounting the stereotypical like roach coaches or like the hot dog vendors. Like, they also have, a trailer or a food truck, but they kind of station themselves at construction sites or something like that. And they don't do much advertising. So this is kind of like, when I define a food truck, it's kind of like this new age, like restaurant on wheels, essentially, that does more than just, like tacos or hot dogs or burgers or sandwiches. It's like more than that.
In what way did going through the business plan building process, do you feel like helped you the most? If you could,
as far as like putting my food truck together, or
yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, what part of the process do you feel like has been the most valuable to you so far? And I know you're still in the funding phase right now, but at this juncture, I guess, what part of the business plan do you feel like was the most beneficial to you so far?
It's hard to pick like even just one or two things. Like, as far as the competition goes, the presentation part of it wasn't judged, but that whole experience was still